Hey everyone, welcome to the newest Spotlight series of the Daily Beacon called Volunteer Voices. I'm Karsten Hoagland, your digital producer, and I'm so happy to launch this new series with y'all. Volunteer Voices is an unscripted series where we interview well-known figures about their road to success. From the highs and lows, we tell it all. Our first guest on Volunteer Voices is a UTK alumnus and journalism major. She has covered major events like the 2012 Democratic National Convention, 3 NCAA championships, and of course the red carpet at the 50th Annual CMA Awards in Nashville. Please welcome morning anchor from WBIR and this year's 40 Under 40 award winner, Heather Waliga. But welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, achieving the 40 Under 40 award, tell us a little bit about the award and what it means to you to win.
Well, first of all, I was so excited when I found out, you get nominated by your peers, which in itself feels like a big deal. And a few people who graduated with me or in the class above me have been through this before. And it's such an honor because the people who are a part of this 40 Under 40 class have done some really big things. So it's very humbling to feel like you're part of this group that has gone on to do a lot in their professional career. So it's very exciting.
Awesome. So talk about your time here at UT. You were involved with student media. How do you think that contributed to where you're at today?
Well, it was huge because the hands-on experience you get here at UT, especially in the programs that are set up for students, really set them up for success. In my first job, I went to Panama City, Florida, and I worked with people from all over the country, some of them who came from schools that didn't have the tools and the resources that we had here. You know, UT Today was a big part of my senior year, which gave me the chance to be part of the student newscast and to report stories and producing and putting things together, which was huge. And then we were all kind of split between the TV stations to be interns. And at the time, internships weren't paid, but it was a really valuable experience because it, first of all, established those connections that you keep up for years. And so when we decided to move back to Knoxville, WBIR, where I interviewed or where I interned, was the first place that I called because I had this lasting relationship with them that started here at UT.
So building those relationships and networking is huge. That's how you got your job at WBIR.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of what we do.
Tell us a little bit about your going from UT into the work field. Do you think you were prepared? How well do you think that change was?
You know, I think that what you learn in the classroom prepares you to a point, and then I think that when you're in the real world doing it, it's very different. I think that I was prepared the best that I could be. I'd never done a live shot. We did not have that capability when I was here. So that was something that I had to learn how to do. I started in a bureau, which was also something I had no idea how to do. It feels like grad school, I think, in your first job.
Yeah.
You have a lot of people you're working with. You're all the same age. You're all kind of in the same boat.
Working out all the mistakes and kind of getting all that. Yeah.
Figuring out how to do this. You know, deadlines are a little different. When I had a week to turn a story in college, you know, they're like, you have 2 hours to get this done. So I think that you learn a lot when you get into that first job. But again, the things that you're learning at UT are so critical in that. And it seems like you guys have even more resources than we did. And I think that that's wonderful because if you're not getting that education in college, it's going to put you behind when you get that first job.
Yeah. So you've kind of done everything, reporting on all different kinds of topics from news, sports, politics. What have you learned along the way from all of those different avenues?
Well, I really think that the biggest lesson is you really just don't know what you're going to be covering from day to day. And I think that's what's so fun about this career is, like you said, you can be covering a presidential visit one day, or you could be covering something big in politics that's happening in the state. You could just be covering a heartwarming story. You know, one of my favorite things that I did when I was in North Carolina was, you know, I'm from a football town here in Tennessee, but there it's all about basketball. Right. So I learned a lot about North Carolina basketball. UNC and Duke, you know, they have a huge fan base, and I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to go cover for or 3 Final Fours, and all of those led to NCAA championships, which was really cool. So yeah, like you said, it's like every day is almost like a field trip.
Yeah,
it's fun.
it is. Yeah, that's the best part about news.
It is.
Hustle and bustle. You never know what you're going to get one
do.
day and then the next. Yeah. So highest point and lowest point of your career. What do you think was your peak moment, something that you really value? And then if you have a low story, if you feel comfortable sharing that, what was that for you?
Well, I think probably the most exciting time in my career was when I worked for an ABC affiliate in Raleigh, and it was an ABC O&O, which means that we were connected to other big ABC stations across the country in some of the biggest markets. So what was exciting about that is we were also partners with Good Morning America, and we had a platform that gave us the chance to be live on those platforms as well. So there was a big riot in Charlotte that we were sent to cover, and I spent all night doing network live shots for World News Tonight. They sent me to Nashville to cover the CMA Awards, which was so exciting being from Tennessee. But that was a cool experience because, it was on ABC Network. And so the opportunities, I think, being at that station at that particular time were endless, and it was exciting because I covered things I never had before. Also, I was in the state capitol, so I learned a lot about state politics and spent a lot of time down at the state legislature. So I would say that was probably one of the highest points of my career. The lowest, I don't remember a specific time where I was like, man, this is just a bad place. I think there are definitely times where you struggle because there are a lot of challenges with the work that we do, and a lot of it is covering stories that you have the highest highs, and some of them are the lowest lows. I mean, the hardest thing I think that you can do in this business is door knock on a story that that on the other side of that door, you're going to hear a story that's just going to break your heart. And sometimes people don't want to talk and share their story, and that's understandable. But I think covering tragedy in a community can bring you to some low points in this career, but what can come out of that and the platform that we have to give people to share their story can also, I think, change lives.
Yeah, you never really know what story you're going to cover and how people are going to react, and sharing those stories, it's definitely something hard. What would you say has been your biggest struggle in the news world? Have you ever gotten burnout, or because it can be taxing at times?
Yes.
Yeah. How do you cope with that? How do you go about that?
Yeah, it's a demanding job. I mean, I think that, luckily my professors here really prepared us for this is a career where you're not going to start out making a lot of money. You're not going to work the hours that you want. You're going to work a lot of holidays. And so I think that being prepared for that, being told that is one thing, and experiencing it is another. And you move around a lot, and you have to sacrifice a lot. I think you sacrifice a lot of family time. It's a little different now. I think people are able to start in cities where they want to go. 18 years ago, it was kind of like wherever is going to hire you, that's where you need to go. So I think that is probably the most challenging part of it. And I think learning how to adapt, having a work-life balance, because you really just don't have a lot of that,
right,
especially in the early years of your career. It's a challenge, and that's probably, I think, the biggest struggle for sure. And I think that's just something that you learn along the way. Your goals change. I think everybody graduates and says, I want to go to the Today Show. I want to make it to the network. And I think, those are wonderful aspirations, but I think you just learn a lot along the way. You learn about what you want out of life. You learn about what you want to cover. And I think that, goals can change, and that's okay. You learn a lot about yourself in this career, for sure.
So you mentioned the long hours, working holidays.
Yes.
You're a mom.
Yes.
What is that like for you? Is it hard sometimes being away? How do you manage that?
Yeah, well, before I had children, I had never worked a morning shift, and I said, I will never work a morning shift in this business. I will get out of this business before I work mornings. When you have kids, that changes everything. But that was a huge blessing in disguise, because when we decided to come back here to Knoxville, we had our first child. Both of our families live here. And WBIR said, we have this morning position open. Would you like it? And I had to think about that for a minute because it changed. It was very different than what I was used to. You know, I worked at a lot of stations where it was hard news, it was evenings, it was overnights, it was a lot of travel, and it kind of slowed down the pace a little bit, but it has been the perfect fit, I think, for when you get a little older in this career and you have a family. I've loved mornings. It has really surprised me. You know, when I came here, it has a little bit more of a lighthearted tone, which is actually fun. It's a really fun. It's really enjoyable. But that did not come naturally to me. I think I had a lot of learning to do. And I think that when you work on a morning shift, it makes you more well-rounded because you do have those fun moments. You have a lot more lighthearted you're trying to get people's day started, but then you have to cover the serious stuff as well. So I've really enjoyed actually working this schedule, and it has been very good for my life as a mom.
And I'm sure it helps having a great co-host.
It sure does.
Heather and Abby are the best duo.
We have a great time.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I like to tell people that I used to watch Abby on TV growing up, which is not true. She says, stop telling people that. I actually started as an intern when Abby was a baby cub reporter. So we had a brief interaction in the newsroom for about a year, 17, 18 years ago, and then we kind of went off on our own paths. And coming back here and then becoming her co-anchor was kind of a full circle moment. You know,
Yeah.
the industry has endless surprises, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel it's always changing. You never know really
Yeah.
what the next day is going to bring.
You don't.
Yeah.
You sure don't.
So giving back to your community, that's something you're passionate about. In what ways do you do that here in Knoxville?
Well, you know, it's a huge part of what you do when you're in local news. And I don't know how you can be in this business and not have that intersect in your life. You know, we cover so many nonprofits and people who need our help. And I think that that's, to me, one of my favorite things about doing this job is that you have a platform to be able to help people. And that started for me back in my first job a long time ago. My mom had a daughter at 40, and she had Down syndrome. And so I think that us as a family learning about what it's like to have someone with special needs kind of really opened my eyes to the community around me in a way that I never really thought. And I just decided, like, I want to help other families have a voice. I want to cover some of the struggles that they're facing. And ever since then, every station I've been at, my family's been part of the Buddy Walk. We have raised a lot of money and a lot of awareness for people with Down syndrome especially, but I've learned a lot from people who have disabilities in all the communities I've lived in. And so that has been something I did not anticipate when I got into this business. But aside from that, you know, I do some work with Big Brothers Big Sisters of East Tennessee. We did a series when I came back here about the need for mentors on the waiting list, which was awesome because when I was here at UT, my partner became the president of Big Brothers Big Sisters of East Tennessee. So when I came back here, we teamed up to resurrect this series, and our first story we ever worked on was on Big Brothers Big Sisters Bowl for Kids' Sake. Another full circle moment. But it was great because we were able to, with that series in that first year, increase the number of mentors by 30%. And to me, like, that's some of the most meaningful work that we can do. If we can do a story and we can inspire people to act on that, it's the greatest service that we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great. So getting connected with the community, WBR started doing the meetup
Yes.
spots. Tell us a little bit about that. How important do you think it is to connect with the community outside of just looking at a camera,
Yes.
seeing you on TV? What is that like for you?
So fun. I mean, like I said, those are the best moments in our career. We spend a lot of time in the studio, in front of cameras, in a room with no one. And sometimes you can forget who you're talking to and who you're connecting with. And we started these coffee meetups that we do with our morning team. And I don't think we were sure, like, how's that going to go? Are people really going to want to come meet us? And what will they have to say? And they have been wildly successful. We've been in a lot of different communities. Our most recent one was in Oak Ridge. And the turnout has been very touching because we've had such a big turnout. And I think that it reminds you that we still have a lot of people that count on local news and a lot of people who think that you're like family. And that is something that you can forget about when you sit in a studio, especially when you're an anchor, you're not out in the field reporting as much, so you don't have that interaction on a daily basis. But those have been so fun. I mean, we have people bring us gifts, we have people pitch us story ideas, we have people that just want to sit down and talk to us, or they remembered something that we talked about on Instagram. That always gives me okay. But yeah, that's been really fun.
Do you think doing those, but also social media, growing your social media, is also important to connect with your following? And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you asked me to do this interview, you reach out on social media. Right. I mean, it's incredible because when I was here 18 years ago, I mean, we didn't even talk about social media. Facebook was new on the scene, and it was really just for kids in college. I think a lot of my peers were like, why would I be on this? What is this about? When I interned, web was kind of new, and so we didn't talk about that a lot. But it has been such a big part of local news now for all this time. It's changed dramatically, and you get a lot of story ideas. I mean, I'd say probably 70% of story ideas I get is from someone who reaches out to me on social media. It's just such a big part of our culture now, and I think you can't ignore the power of it.
State of the media, it's kind of changing constantly. Going back to that tie with social media and connecting with your following, do you think social media has helped or hurt local news stations? What's that look like for WBIR?
Well, you know, we talk about this a lot, and we at WBIR now have a lot of younger employees when we didn't used to, who have a lot different perspective than, say, some of us that are older. I think that it's been both. It's been a blessing. It can be a curse. It seems like everyone with an iPhone now is a journalist. Everybody can have that, first on the scene point of view. I think that there's a lot of misinformation on social media. When I talk to people, especially young people, when I've been at career fairs in high school, most people are getting their news now on social media. You told me you wake up in the morning, you look at Instagram, you might see a story of what Abby and I are doing, and we try to mix it up and have some fun things in there, some news things in there that you need to know. But I think that as long as people are seeking out information about their community, they're checking their sources, they're getting their news from credible sources. I think that's important because there is a lot of misinformation. So it's this wonderful tool that we have to connect with each other, to have information at our fingertips. But I think we need to be careful about what we're consuming and where we're getting our news from.
Where do you think are the best places to consume critical news, but also that's trustworthy?
Well, WBIR.
Of course, WBIR.
But I think if you're online, I think check with all your local news stations first. I mean, I'm a big advocate of, you know what, if watching local news isn't your thing, it's okay. Just know what's going on in your community. It's important. It doesn't matter what field you're in. You should be in the know about the things that are happening. You have kids in school, know what's going on at the school board. Take an interest in your city. I think that, of course, there's all the, I still love to read the newspaper. I'm checking all the local newspapers. I'm checking national sources. I think that it's okay for people to still get their news digitally. I just think, make sure that where you're getting it from is a credible source.
Right, yeah. Of course. Is there anything that you would like to add, you would like for people to know that's maybe in college or just look up to you?
Yeah, I get asked a lot, what advice would you have for people who are trying to do this? I think it's changed a lot since I started, and I think that there are still some things that stay the same. I think connect wherever you can. I mean, the fact that you reached out to us, you came to the station one day just to hang out. I think that's such a great quality. If you see someone you admire, follow them on social media. Maybe send them a message. Ask if you can have a phone conversation. Don't be afraid to connect with people, because I think that that's, especially for people interested in this, it's the best thing you can do. Make connections, because you never know when you're going to run into that person again someday, when Abby's going to become your co-anchor. You never know when you're going to need those people again. And so, make connections, get some experience, get internships where you can, try to get outside of the classroom. I think that that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, sharing your story, and of course, congrats on the 40 Under 40 award.
Thank you.
Amazing.